evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Master Sergeant Nathan Gellock, and I will be your narrator for today's ceremony. On behalf of Colonel John Scott, Air National Guard Advisor to the Commander, Air Mobility Command, welcome to the retirement ceremony honoring Senior Master Sergeant John M. Wesley. Before we begin, we ask that you silence all electronic devices. Thank you. Throughout the formal portion of the ceremony, you will be given cues to stand and be seated at the appropriate times. As a reminder, it is military tradition and protocol that everyone stands for the entrance of the retirement party and during the singing of the national anthem. During the singing of the national anthem, our civilian guests are invited to place their right hand over their heart. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the entrance of the retirement party and the singing of the national anthem by Staff Sergeant America.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Sergeant. Joining us for today's ceremony are Senior Master Sergeant Wesley's family and close friends. John, would you like to introduce your family?
Sure. I've got some traveling from numerous places in the country. They're in the second row here. Tell you what, do they need to stand right now, everybody? Okay, go ahead. Everybody sit. It's really surprised me how many people are here. And it's stuffy in here. I'm already sweating. I don't know if it's stress or whatnot. So on this end, I'll start out with my sister, Brenda, and her husband, Bill, coming from Houston. My son, Drew. My daughter, Jessie, and her fiance, Philip. My other sister, my older sister, Debbie, and her husband, Kevin, coming from Michigan. My mom, coming from Grants, New Mexico. And then this guy that would just happen to be traveling through the road, through the state, I said, hey, if you can stop by. So no, he was an old family friend. For those that didn't know, I grew up in New Mexico. And so John Gwynn from Las Cruces, New Mexico. At the back, my mom and Jimmy are involved in some audio-visual for a little television station, some advertisements and stuff like that. So Jimmy is videotaping. So, and they do some stuff with the Pueblos, Navajo, Indian, yeah, a lot of things like that. So that's pretty much it. Wow. I was hoping there might be 3-4 people show up. I was really cross. So the fact that we're almost out of seats. Yeah. I'll say it again, but it's good to see all of you. Okay, that's all I have for now.
Thank you, John. We're also pleased to have several distinguished visitors joining us today. Please hold your applause until all are announced. Major General Gregory Ferguson, Assistant to the Commander, Air Force Special Operations Command. Brigadier General Tom Ryan, Assistant Adjutant General for Air. Brigadier General James Michael McCormick, United States Air Force, retired. Colonel Devin Wooden, Commander, 137th Special Operations Wing. Colonel Hayworth, Vice Commander, 137th Special Operations Wing. Colonel Kelly Cobble, Commander, 137th Special Operations Group. Colonel Brad White, JTF Commander for Air. Chief Stephen Rosebrook, Command Chief, 137th Special Operations Wing. We would like to extend a special welcome to all other commanders, chiefs, retirees, co-workers, and friends who honor us with their presence this afternoon. Welcome to this ceremony honoring Senior Master Sergeant Wesley on the occasion of his retirement from the Oklahoma Air National Guard. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel John Scott.
Well, thanks for coming. Like John said, got a good turnout for John. So what we have, I was his commander for a number of years, and so I have the most dirt on him, so that's why he chose me to come up here and talk about him. But before I get started on that, Sergeant Vanoni, thank you for a great job on the national anthem, making that all work. So over there, and thanks for everybody who came out here, all the distinguished visitors. We did get a lot of heavy showing, which is really good for John. He's done a lot of things out here. Because kind of what I'm going to talk about is just kind of a quick and dirty of he went through his career. You look at it, you're like, whew, 36 years of your life. That's a pretty big block. That's a really big block. That's basically his entire adult life. So you put that all together, and you end up with a lot of gives and gets. So what John got out of here, other than this family, we look at he started here in 1989, went to basic training, started over with the porters. I see a lot of porters back there. He was in aerial port from 90 to 93. He got picked up as a load master over here in the 185th, and went to load master school, then really started getting out on the road hot and heavy as a load master. And then he stayed there up until 2001, the summer of 2001, and then he, in 95, he jumped over to the Telsey. So he's a load master for 2 years, but it's kind of the Telsey-Elsie world is a strange world. We have flyers, we have ground personnel, we have a lot of different AFSCs. So he came over there to put his expertise to work, being a load master. Still gets to fly in the Elsie. That was kind of the nice thing. So he's still a load master, and then kind of also got to work his port background, which he used a lot as an Elsie member. He stayed in the Elsie up until the summer 2001. 2001, he jumped back to the squadron. By that time, he was instructor load, doing a lot of stuff, great stuff for the flying squadron as a load master over here. And then he came back to his home again, not his original home like port, but he came back to Elsie again in 2005. So once he came back in 2005 to Elsie, at that time I was the commander. I welcomed John back, and he did a lot of great things for us. We had a couple load masters, but then in 2007, as we all know, we changed to the 135. The Elsie became kind of a strange beast with a tanker unit having a airlift control flight, which is normally with C-130 units. So we were trying to find our niche. John did go become a boom operator, but he still kind of held on to his roots of knowing, going out, teaching affiliation training, which is loading of aircraft and that kind of stuff. But so his real niche in this whole thing was not so much flying, but it was really ensuring that the mission is moving forward. So it was getting stuff up and out, and that's what Elsie does. We went to austere airfields, and we would ensure we could receive loads and send loads away, and we were there to keep the mission going. And John's expertise as a load master, as a porter, and also as a boom operator really helped. So that was a big get for John. Other than he did finish up with over 4,000 hours flying. He did also have over 500 hours of combat time. So there's a couple more gets. And another thing he got was 61 countries. Went to 61 countries, 5 continents. So that's pretty good. If you look at the span of the career, you got to do a lot of great things. That's a lot of good stuff. But you sit back and you go, wow, that is a lot of stuff. One final get, well, you're going to get a retirement paycheck, but we'll talk about that later. But he got a lot. He got a lot from here. But the give is really what happened out here. He had to give his time. And who really suffered? He was out doing these things. He got to 61 countries. He got to do all these things. But the family right here, they don't get to see him all the time. He goes off, does his stuff. So I looked and crunched the numbers. Deployed over 2,600 days. That's a lot. 1,100 of them were overseas. That's a lot of sacrifice for the family right here. And you guys, I know we missed a lot of birthdays, a lot of special time, reunions, what have you. So that's the gives you gave, and that's what we got. So when I go back to look at all those things that part of the gets, what he got, the gives that you've given us by sacrificing by him, the really big get is what we look around in this room. So what did John do for the get? The really big thing that we got. So for we've been basically for all you younger people, we've been nothing but turmoil and war since about 2001. You're coming into a new mission where you're going to continue this. It's not going to stop. It's not going away anytime soon. So what the country did, if you think about this, they got something great from John. That's a lot of time. 2,600 days TDY. That's a lot of time. Oklahoma Air National Guard got great work out of John. I've been deployed with him many times. Always a professional, anywhere he ever went, did great work. He maybe showed up to work a little too much, if you know his background. So other than all the stuff that we as a country, we as the Air National Guard, we as Oklahoma Air National Guard, we got a lot out of John. But what I think I got more than any of this other stuff was I got something out of John. If anybody knows John Wesley, we all understand that he drove that red truck. We probably all remember the Ford red truck. And he'd go, well, I think I have that tool. And you go back and you'd look in the back of that red truck and you'd open it up. And I don't know who built that thing. I know it was you. But you're like, I got a cubby hole here, I got a flip, flip, switch, lift up. There were so many compartments and so many detailed areas in that truck. If you were ever experienced and saw the back end of that truck and all the tools and all the things and all the organization that he had put into that truck in the back end of that vehicle, all you had to do was ask John and you could find it. So that was the big get that I got from him. And then when he came back to the LC, we'd moved out of the old building. We moved into the new old building. And so when we were in the new old building, there was a guy in there who made that building look like the back of his truck. You could go in that building, you could ask something just way off the beaten path. I need a 30-foot cable for an 8K generator, blah, blah, blah. And he'd be like, oh, that's over. And he'd walk right to the spot, open it up, boom, get that cable out. And you'd be like, oh my God, how do you know all this stuff? So it was fortunate. So 2 good things happened. He organized the LC, saved me as a commander, saved me many times, taught me some organizational skills. But the good thing that happened for the 137th was, thank God they closed the LC down, because no one else knew where all that crap was. So since they closed the LC down, we no longer have that. Things have moved on. I see a lot of old LC people out here in the crowd, and they understand that. They understand how crazy it was over there, how there was a million things all hidden, cubby-holed away. And John was there all the time, dedicating himself, putting all that time in to making sure we were ready, prepared, had everything to go so that we would give the get back to the nation. So, John, thank you.
So we'll do
Yes.
the presentation.
Okay. So, are we ready for the presentation number uno? You have a whole bunch. So,
Thank you, Colonel Scott. So ladies and gentlemen, please stand as we continue with the ceremony.
up here or?
Okay, there you go. Colonel Scott will now present Senior Master Sergeant Wesley with the Meritorious Service Medal. Citation reads, "To all who shall see these presents, greeting. This is to certify that the President of the United States of America, authorized by Executive Order 16 January 1969, has awarded the Meritorious Service Medal, 1st Oak Leaf Cluster, to Senior Master Sergeant John M. Wesley for meritorious service 22 July 2012 to 20 February 2015. Accomplishments. Senior Master Sergeant John M. Wesley distinguished himself in the performance of outstanding service to the United States while assigned to the 137th Airlift Control Flight. During this period, Sergeant Wesley significantly contributed to numerous airlift operations, both foreign and domestic. In 2012, 2013, and again in 2014, Sergeant Wesley spearheaded the first airlift of new and unique equipment for the Chemical, Biological, Nuclear Explosives Enhanced Response Force Package teams from California, Indiana, and Utah. He identified shortcomings and recommended specific changes to the dimensions of the trailers used by these units. Those changes improved efficiency of both the loading time and numbers of aircraft were required, saving over $190,000 per exercise. Sergeant Wesley worked hand in hand with the manufacturer to develop the Domestic Operations Airlift Modular Approach Shoring System, which allows previously unloadable cargo to be loaded into the aircraft. This shoring system revolutionized aircraft loading by reducing load times by as much as 75%. During his time in the 137th Airlift Control Flight, Sergeant Wesley also instructed over 60 Air Mobility Command airlift load planning courses to over 1,000 students from all military services. The singularly distinctive accomplishments of Sergeant Wesley culminate a distinguished career in the service of his country and reflect great credit upon himself, the Air National Guard, and the United States Air Force. Given under my hand, Colonel Kelly Cobble, 137th Operations Group Commander.
Publish the order.
Attention to orders. Department of the Air Force Special Order Number Echo Kilo 1729. John M. Wesley is relieved from assignment with the 137th Airlift Control Flight and honorably discharged effective 22 February 2015. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated for the remaining presentations. Certificate of Retirement from the Armed Forces of the United States reads, "To all who shall see these presents, greeting. This is to certify that Senior Master Sergeant John M. Wesley, having served faithfully and honorably, was retired from the United States Air Force on the 22nd day of February 2015. Signed, General Mark A. Welsh III, United States Air Force Chief of Staff." Colonel Scott will now present a letter of appreciation from the Honorable George W. Bush. The certificate reads, "Dear John, congratulations on your retirement from the United States Armed Forces. I am proud to have served as your Commander-in-Chief, and I am pleased to join your family, friends, and colleagues in recognizing your career and accomplishments. Throughout history, the dedicated men and women of our military have protected our citizens and preserved the ideals that make our country strong. Their courage and sacrifice have inspired countless people and have helped shape America's character. On behalf of a grateful nation, I thank you for your contributions to our security and to the cause of peace and freedom. Your service, patriotism, and selfless devotion have helped advance the universal hope of liberty at home and around the world. Laura and I send our best wishes for health and happiness in the years ahead. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless America. Sincerely, signed, George W. Bush. At this time, Colonel Scott will now present Senior Master Sergeant Wesley with the flag flown over the state capitol. The certificate reads, "The flag of the United States of America can be seen at the highest pinnacle fronting the capital of Oklahoma. In the waving folds of the Stars and Stripes lies the history of a mighty nation and its people. Our great state is represented by the 46th star, which was added in 1907 when Oklahoma was admitted to the Union. Our star is symbolic of the energy, creativity, stamina, courage, and warm hearts of the people. Blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity have been made possible through our faith and dedication to the future of our great nation. This flag was flown over the Oklahoma State Capitol as the official flag of the United States of America on the 25th day of July 2016. Given under my hand in the city of Oklahoma City, Mary Fallon, Governor of Oklahoma." Thank you all. At this time, Colonel Scott will now present Senior Master Sergeant with his shadow box. Very well presented.
Lift your leg.
Okay. Thank you, Colonel Scott. At this time, I'd like to invite any guests. Major General Ferguson, would you care to make any comments?
Good afternoon. I'd like to just echo every single thing that our host has said already. Thanks, Colonel Scott. Welcome back to all the retirees on the row back there and across the room. Chiefs, thanks for being here today. Sitting there listening to what John has done and the citation on his MSM and the number of trips we've been on together, things we've done, what I've watched you do. And, you know, words don't really capture it in a way that paints the proper picture. It really doesn't, especially for this guy. You know, it wasn't a matter if he came to work just to come to work. He owned everything he touched. And just like was already said, his whole goal was to make it better and to move it down the road and to leave it in a way, shape, and form that was better than what it found. And I've watched that I don't know how many times. As a 130 guy flying trips and being deployed to the desert, watching you do your magic was one of them. All the courses that you taught was another one. I had a chance to work up at Transcom for a while, and they have a vast department of experts to move whatever. And had an opportunity out here one day that thought, man, I'm finally going to get to tell John about something that he did not know about. So I described this comm suite that was in the process of being validated for movement. He goes, oh yeah, they were just out here on the ramp. I was helping them get it held up. So I thought, well, I missed that chance to actually teach him something. That didn't work out. But it just goes on and on. And, you know, just the, I don't know, just the number of years you've invested in us as a family can't be duplicated. It really can't be. And I think when you look out across this group today and the turnout, what I know has been each life here that you've probably invested yourself in some way, shape, or form. You know, that can't tell a story and be more emblematic of what you meant to an organization, in this case a Guard family, and the lasting thumbprint that will always be here. And so, you know, we can say thank you, and we can say Godspeed, good wishes, and come back. good about us, but I really don't think words can capture, in this case, for this man, what you've done for the nation and for the Air Force and for us. So, Godspeed, brother.
General Ryan?
For those that aren't familiar, some of the officers present me with their personal coins in appreciation, and I really appreciate those.
Hard to know for you. To say thank you for your years of service and sacrifice. Not only that, but thank you to the families and the friends, because we're seldom successful in our careers without their support. So I want to personally thank you for all your efforts over the years. I've enjoyed flying with you around the world. You've always treated me well. And I think you're one of those guys that you always figured out a way to get to yes. So, and, we didn't always ask about the methods to get to yes, but you've always gotten to yes. So I appreciate it very much, and we're going to miss you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Colonel Wood?
There's only one weasel. And I know that the aerial port and ATOCs at the 379th, the 455th, the 451st, and the 480th over in CENTCOM. Thank God for that. In the 2004, there's some pictures here. Weasel was loadmaster. We had Bentley, Cam was with me. We had Eric Salgado and Rich Trotter on the crew. And after you've been over there several months and flying and you get those crappy loads, they would fill up to the back of the airplane. This detail-oriented, meticulous guy would just bitch up a storm. On headset, you just hear it like, good God, look at this, no walkway aisle to the back, just all this stuff. So I said one day, I said, well, that talk's right over there. Why don't you go over there and do something about it? So we're on the field at Bagram, and guys have run to the BX or shop ed or whatever, and I just happened to be out of the airplane, and Salgado was sitting up in the engineer's seat with the AP running. Here comes this AT forklift pulling up to the back. I just happened to walk out there. There's a senior airman sitting on it, and there's this big old pallet, too tall, no walkway for the sides, all this stuff, and I looked behind it, see if it could be turned, and I looked on the other side. I went up and I told this kid, I said, you're probably going to get to rebuild that. I don't think that's getting on the airplane today. Kind of looked at me like, what's this Lieutenant Colonel know? And I went on, got in the back of the airplane. I'm standing there on the ramp watching, and here comes Weasel walking out. He's got his flight suit tied around his waist. He's got his gloves in his hand. He goes out there and surveys this pallet. And I can't hear what was said. I could just see it. But I see him throw his flight gloves down on the ground, turn and whack off to ATOC. And the kid looks at me and he goes, and I went, I tried. Can't help you. So I always appreciated flying with you and what you brought to the fight and what you brought to a crew. And John, you did awesome with your words. I can't repeat any of that as well as you did it. So congrats on capturing Wesley. But I will say that I lost my train of thought there. That flying with you and you being on the crew and doing what you do is unmatched. And the affiliation training that you mentioned really cannot be overstated. You traveled all over the world. You did it in CENTCOM, you did it in youth safety, you did it for active duty, you did it for guard, you did it for reserve. So not only were you a standard bearer for the ALSI, for the airlift wing and the air refueling wing, but for the Air National Guard as a whole. And looking at us as a wing now that requires affiliation training, and I look out across the globe, there's only one Weasel, and he's Senior Master Sergeant retired. I would give you a point.
And I am available.
Now, as I was getting ready to come up here, I was talking to Colonel Hayworth, and we were sitting here visiting about you and about this ceremony. And I asked Hayworth if he had any stories about you. And they started 40 years ago.
Because we go way back.
If I'd have known you liked coins that well, I would have kept it. But I actually gave it to Doug because I couldn't deny him the opportunity to come up here. But on behalf of all the wing commanders you served, thank you for your service. We're going to miss you.
Thank you, sir. I
You got the
appreciate your work.
So if you haven't figured out, John and I go way back. Now, this is where we go back to. 1981, I'm waiting on this person that owns a delicatessen to deliver some sandwiches to me, right? So about the middle of the afternoon, I hear this noise and this, look out the window and there's this little brown-haired, 5-foot girl, 110 pounds, riding this great old big motorcycle. And it was John's motorcycle.
A fast motorcycle.
So that's when I met John. That's what we call John Dar. That's all my kids call him John. And I think that comes probably from when they were kids. And John's mother was the, we said not nanny, took care of the young kids. When John's dad and my father-in-law worked together at Pine Bluff in the arsenal there. And so they go, John and my wife go way back, and we've had some discussions about that. But
Well, we were in diapers together. Far back, yeah.
So fast forward a little bit, you know, John and I get to know each other pretty well over a few years, and in 1986, I joined the Air National Guard. So John at that time was living in Anadarko, and I think managing the Mazios.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So John starts quizzing me. So tell me about this. You know, what do you do? You know, what's the drill like? So anyway, we kept talking about it. Finally, one day, John said he thought he'd join. I said, John, I got it figured out. I said, I've got it figured out. I know how you can beat this. I don't know if you remember me telling you this.
I don't.
But he took it to heart. I tell you, I said, all you got to do is you come in just about 30 minutes early, and you stay about 30 minutes late every drill, and in between, don't sit down. You know, if you're not doing something, go find something to do. I said, if you'll just knock yourself out for 2 days, man, you can go as far as you want. I didn't realize he was going to take it this 2,600 hours of TV work. But John, one of the best compliments I ever heard for you, I don't know if I ever told you, but somebody one day said, well, where was John stationed on active duty? You know, they just was convinced that John couldn't be a guard baby. He had to have had some active duty time somewhere. So anyway, I used John's story, and I've used that, hey, knock yourself out for, you know, a weekend. I've used it a lot here as I've got a chance to go around and do town hall meetings and stuff like that. And I don't know how many people I've told that over the years. John's the guy I was talking about. And to me, a higher compliment couldn't be paid than somebody thinks that you had to have come from active duty. You know, you had to come back to duty. But I'm very honored, John, to get to be the one on behalf of all those officers appointed over you, you know, that you swore to obey, to get a chance to hand you a coin in our appreciation from all the wing commanders that you've served with and all the commanders you've served with. Job well done.
Thank you.
Colonel Cobble?
Oh, I'm sorry. You got to hear this. So what do people do when they go to basic training? You know, they're going to go down there and they're going to get their head shaved and all that stuff. So what do people do sometimes? Shave their head to beat the punch. How many have ever seen John Wesley in blonde hair? John, yeah, my family. John actually dyed his hair blonde, took some like photo, what they call glamour shots, you know. Right? So I'll bring those to work.
Just because I knew it was going to be gone, might as well play with it, right? Yeah. It was kind of like well, we'll talk about Matt in a little bit, and his calendar, right? Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Colonel Cobble, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, I don't have one. But I really can't elaborate on the greatness of John Wesley, but I will a little bit. What a great American. Always here, always serving, and couldn't be more proud to have served with this guy and flown with him for many years. So I'm just going to tell a couple of quick stories. Oh, was there free beer? There's a bunch of porters back here. You know it. Two real quick stories before I get off the stage. But I was over in Germany once on one of them provide promise rotations, and Doug and Weasel asked me, said, "Hey, we're going to go over there at Battle of the Bulge, over there at Bastogne, and you want to go with us?" And I said, "Sure." I said, "No, there's probably some pretty good beer over there." Didn't realize it was going to be from sun up to sundown and going to hitting every museum and cemetery in the world. It's like, man, when you get back, you know, the club's going to close. That's all I was interested in. And the other thing is over in Toledo. Is in a tent next to us, and Casey, I think, is back there, and Brad, they were in my crew, and we did a really good job on our tent. Everybody's building these things out in front of their tent, and we did a really good job. We were very resourceful, and we just used scrap wood, and we said rules for our tent is no extra cuts. So whatever we found, we had to use. So it was pretty good. And we had the OK corral, right? Look next door, and there's John out there. Everybody knows what a woodworker is. John's out there, got this big, gigantic addition to their tent, and he's got bay windows and parquet floors. That made us feel bad, by the way. Anyway, congratulations.
John's inspirational for taking it to the next level. It's go big or go home. Kelly touched on the story, and I just got to take it just a little bit further, that the amount of effort that John took to his tent. Now, picture in your mind, we are now in a very militaristic, very uniform tent setting. Every tent looks alike, and then the guard shows up. And John Wesley is the neighbor, and not a day went by where those tools weren't used to the extreme, right to their death. Brought tools, used tools, had banks of charging batteries and so forth. Every soffit was in place, every cut was pristine, and people just stood in awe. And resources were scarce. This is the middle of Iraq for everyone except him. He got cabinet-grade wood everywhere, shipped in stacks of it. And then to tell the story about what we did, the only thing we could do to support him as fellow crew members is to absolutely torpedo this work of art by having the crappiest looking possible, just absolutely bring down the value of the neighborhood, and we did it too. We started off, no cut was ever going to be straight, and no length was ever going to be measured. And we started off with the door to our tent was held together with a sports bra that would always stand. And one of the first things that we invented, that where we knew we found more inspiration from this, was we built the amnesty box. Now, this was not a sanctioned amnesty box, and it actually started off, we got a bunch of empties in there and some wadded up magazines, nothing that really had any intrinsic value to it. But then we started thinking, because he kind of didn't really like the neighborhood he was living in at that point. So that's when we got the stable, and we built the horse. And the horse was built out of scrap wood. I mean, if you're going to have wild animals living in your neighborhood, it's just going to be, just despise it. So people come by and gaze at his beautiful work of art, and then look at the trashy neighborhood he lives in and walks off. Well, one day the horse disappeared, and there's been pictures of the horse come up since. He got pictures of it taken to different countries, and pictures made it back to ops and so forth. Well, we never really figured out who stole the horse, but we went ahead and made a mannequin of who we thought stole the horse. And we hung him high in a gallows for all to see, for cattle rustling. We had it up there. And do you remember the command chief came down, he told us that was racist, we had to take that down. And then we used some of his scrap wood, and we built an electric chair. It had a big old float. So, anyway,
Before we press on, you got to understand, when you're deployed in Tent City, you live for the mission. And if you're not flying, you're going stir crazy, you're bored, So we find these creative, fun, different activities. Some good, some not so good. So it's all good fun. Yeah.
Chief Rosebrook?
Yeah.
Colonel Scott was talking about what you get. It kind of struck home with me. I credit you when I talk a lot about somebody asked me how'd you get to where you are. And I just kind of go back through and talk about my past mentors. And one thing about Weasel, and what I credit him for, is whenever as a porter, we'd go to load a plane. John would come out and say, can't load it that way. I'd be like, yeah, you can. The reg says you can. What'd you say? What reg? Well, the reg. Well, what chapter? What page? And so it made me get into the books. And so what I got out of that was to be prepared when I went to any load master, especially him. But the second thing is when I would go TDY, and what I got out of the flight was I got a 5-course meal. I got because you'd look up there and we'd be somewhere and Weasel would be cooking, and he would cook the whole time.
There's an oven on the airplane.
And no matter what, he wouldn't just cook for the crew. He cooked for everybody, and it was just what a mentor. And we're gonna miss you, man. I appreciate everything you did for me. Thanks, brother.
At this time, I'd like to invite any other guests to make any presentations or share any stories you may have. Senior Minister.
All right, I got something. Okay, so when word came down that I was supposed to help with the retirement here, I called Nate and I said, hey, help me out with it. And maybe we can see about, we were talking about right before we had lunch with him about 3 weeks ago. We meet over at Swadley's and I said, all right, John, I got to ask you on the gift. I don't know why I'm asking you this, but shadow box? And he goes, I already built it, it's put together. And it's that one right there. For those of you that know John, he's a master craftsman, so he fashioned his own shadow box. So instead of that, with the help of Samantha and Mark, we got you from Telsey, an Oklahoma flag, and they folded it to where it has a nice crease in it, and hope you'll display this and remember your brothers and sisters in Telsey.
Thank you very much. Colonel Jason Rosnick, he was the last commander of the airlift control flight before they disbanded.
So I was his commander for like 2 weeks.
But we were around the world and other, yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I want to tell my story before all the good ones come out. First time I met Sergeant Wesley, we'd been into Buck and we just got to LUD. It was about 10 o'clock at night, it was dark and probably 100 degrees. And I just stopped by the tent there where they check you in, they assign you a tent. I had this armful of sheets and pillow and I'm walking through Tent City and it's poorly lit. And I see this thing move out of the corner of my eye and I look over there. And it's a snake, big snake. The thing is coming right at me. So I start high-stepping, my sheets go in the dirt. I think this copper's about to take my life. I hear this laughter. I look over, and there's Weasel across the aisle with a string. First introduction to him. And he's an outstanding individual.
I had no clue you were one of my victims. Since that time he came to the Telsey as the age mechanic, we had a good working relationship, and he's his dry humor and funny, hilarious guy. Hard work. But I had no clue that was the first impression. The snake actually came. Where's Harlow? Here. Yeah, it was your wife that sent the snake, right? Yeah. But I just became fascinated by it. It was perfect. You've got gravel roads, poor lighting, trash cans, rows of tents and stuff. And so where the light of this one light would cast a shadow on the other side of the trash can, you couldn't see what was there. So we had a little piece of fishing line. A handful of us were across the road, just hanging out, talking, waiting for victims. And what was so great is that you run the string under your foot, you're sitting there, and all you had to do is pull on it like this. And so as somebody's walking past, they might not hear it or see it, but they would hear this rustling in the gravel. And they would glance down, and some guys immediately thought it's a fake snake. Until it moved towards them. And some guys, they would light out. I mean, they would high step in and run. It was the most entertaining thing. The guy, for the victim, they'd be angry. They would be ready to fight. But there's 10 of us laughing at them. There's nothing they could do except say,
Good one.
okay, when's the next guy coming? For the next victim. But in IUD, it got to the point that for the in-processing briefing, the snake at near 10:45, watch out for it, for new troops coming off base. It got to be that serious, so okay.
Any other presentations, stories? Please, sir.
A lot of new faces. I'm retired. I'm Mike, Brigadier General retired Mike McCormick, and I was John's aircraft commander. I think we were on the first initial deployment over there to provide promise over Frankfurt.
That's right. It was
October of '93. Yep. And anyway, John started out on my crew. We got over there, and it was really a pretty neat setup. For those of you that haven't been to Frankfurt, in those days, it was the airlift base in Western Europe. They called it the gateway to Europe. But anyway, for this exercise, not actually, it was a contingency plan to resupply what do they call them,
the Bosnian.
Yeah, the peacekeepers, and also the Bosnian, and even the Serb civilians so we fly missions from Frankfurt down to Sarajevo, offload them, come back, go over to Croatia to a place called Split, and load up again. We do 2 more shuttles before we came back to Frankfurt. But anyway, we got there, and the setup was, Frankfurt had this nice hotel for transit air crews. It wasn't your typical, it looked like a pretty nice hotel. And anyway, everybody had nice private rooms. And anyway, they had this multi-purpose use down in the basement. We called it basement ops. But anyway, that's where our air crew, we basically ran our scheduling out of there. I mean, that's where all the flight schedule notices were, and we had a couple beer boxes down there, refrigerators. Well, anyway, John gets there, and his handyman skills, he's the what do you call it, the self-help guru of anything. He can take something and make it nice. Anyway, he gets this place all decorated up. The thing I remember most is, I don't know where you got that, was it a camouflage net? Had it draped along one wall. It really looked like it was a real cool place, thanks to John. Well, anyway, I only got to fly with John. How many times did we fly? Maybe the first week?
I think it was probably a week or 2 at the most. Yeah.
About a week or 2. Then he went to NIP. I think he had a kidney infection. So. Anyway,
For another week.
Yeah.
But then you could pull it back.
Yeah, but anyway, I had to put up with Bentley by himself. But anyway, and the other thing I remember about John, he's the first guy I ever saw other than, was it Jerry Rice with the 49ers that wore those breathe-right strips? Well, anyway, he was known by his breathe-right strips. But anyway,
You go through phases in life, right?
But he's definitely the guy you want to go with on a deployment. He'll make life comfortable for you.
Any other presentation stories?
Time to bust everybody. Me and John, we went to Loadmaster school together. We had bedroom, shared a bathroom and all that. There's a seedy side to John, him, Weasel, Wesley. And I hate to break this, and I'll keep it clean. I got to spend a little time with Weasel in the Alsea, and I got to get into his little affiliation training world. So we go off on a affiliation training to Reno, Nevada, and it's right in the middle of hot August nights, the world's biggest car show. Me and Weasel get in our government van, a little Dodge minivan with government plates on either side of it. We're driving around into the Wild West deserts of Reno, Nevada.
Exploring the countryside.
Exploring the countryside, taking in the sights, and all of a sudden I said, hot dang, look at this here, there's a little settlement here. There's a motocross track, there's a pond. Look at this building. It's got a little guard shack and everything. We drive up to it, just fat, dumb, and stupid. Drive up there, we pull up to the building. All of a sudden you look up there in big, bright neon letters, the Mustang Ranch. Slam it, reverse.
We know that if we drive that government vehicle onto the property of Mustang Ranch, there's our career.
Oh, you missed it by that much. So a couple of weeks later, I'm back in the Weasel world. Well, Weasel, he's never led me astray except this one time. So we're driving around in Great Falls, Montana.
Yeah.
We've been trout fishing, we've been exploring, just doing everything, you know, just we're one with nature. Driving around again. And we pull up to this great big nice looking place, big old gate thing on there. It's got a landing strip, a homemade hangar and all that. You look up on there and there's a P-51 laser cutting this deal, and it's called the Mustang Ranch.
Chief, good to see you, brother. I've got just a short story on how John likes to instruct on everywhere he goes. We've been at the book, and we pulled in to get our first load, pull into a loading ramp, shut down, and the loading crew is supposed to have a chalk, so they can chalk their forklift or whatever they're using back to the airplane. Well, we pulled in, they didn't have a chalk. So John tells, hey, where's your chalk? That's part of your equipment, you have to have a chalk. Sir, we don't have one. All right, this one time I'm going to give you our chalk off the airplane, and you can use it, and we'll load. Next day we pull in there. They didn't have a chalk. Well, can't we just use yours? And he goes, no, you guys are going to learn. You've got to have your own chalk. Sean McCormick was the AC, and we're sitting up front, and Sean said, what is he doing back there? What's he doing back there? I don't know what he does back there. So I go back, and I said, John, what's going on? They didn't have their chalk, and they're not getting mine, and he's got it in his hand. He goes, they're going to learn. I said, John, just give them the chalk. He goes, shouldn't you be flipping switches up front or something?
Flight engineer.
So I go back up front, and I tell Sean, I said, listen, he's holding the chalk in his hand, but he will not give it to him. He says, you go back there again, and you tell John, give him that damn chalk right now. So I go back there, I said, Sean says, AC said, give him the chalk. He goes, nope.
The AC's aircraft commander pilot outranks me.
Yeah. So I go back up front, I go, Sean, he's not budging. He's just holding that chalk, and he says they're going to have to find their own chalk. I said, you want to go back there? And he goes, not really. So we probably sat there about 20 minutes, and they roasted up the chalk, and it never happened again.
They never happened again. That's the lesson.
Right.
It's amazing the stories that come out that I've all completely forgotten. Obviously, I've made some impressions that were more impressive on others.
You do have some.
I'm just glad that you finally have something to put on your totally bare walls at home.
Oh, yeah.
Start hanging them from the ceiling.
I got one chef story.
Okay, let me explain real quick. For those who aren't familiar, there's a little oven on the C-130. It's made for little thin trays about this big, and you can rack and stack them, and it's mainly to feed the crew of 6. So you can get 6 of these little trays. but you could take those trays out, a little bit taller oven. It's a convection oven. So during my career, I've made it a point, especially on long flights, you can get creative and do a number of different meals. And so,
Yeah, so this is, and I know I joked about I was commander for 2 weeks. I have dealt with Weasel my entire 21 years out here. When I was in aerial port, I was the chop guy that was getting yelled at my first time out to load an airplane. From aerial port, went off the pilot train, came back, and we flew all over the world. And then I joined TALSI in '09 as El Gato Grande's DO, and then ended up being the commander for your last 2 weeks, and then TALSI's last 5 months. So, but we were there. We were. We were at Kadena. We were at Kadena, and we were going to do the last sortie up right because we got in a bet with the other crew who can have the quickest load time up at Yokota. So it was Kadena to Yokota and back because they were working on the runway up there, and Brad White was our aircraft commander, and the other crew was Troy Jackson and Justin Walker, wasn't it?
Aaron Warlaw, wasn't
It was with Troy Jackson? Okay. But wasn't Walker with us too? I played golf with him, I thought. I don't know, I drank some. So every now and then when you fly, Weasel's always cooking something. And he goes, and we had this bet on, so it's on. So this is just to give you an example of the cooking skills. He goes to the commissary there at Kadena, and we all throw in some money. We get those Prego lasagnas. The ones that you stick in the oven, they slide real nice into the oven.
that was the key, finding items that would slide into the oven.
So on the way up there, and I have a picture of it somewhere. He's making like tin-foil trays there in the galley, but we had an appetizer. I can't remember what you made for the appetizer. It was like cheese. Oh, it was cheese sticks.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We had cheese sticks for the entire crew. Then we had lasagna.
With garlic bread.
With garlic bread. That's where the tinfoil came in. If you've ever been around a C-130 Loadmaster, there's two things that they really want to have. Well, they want their pro gear and a brand new roll of tinfoil, so they can make something. So we're going up there. We hit the ground running, and it got to a point where we were ready to start engines, and the ground crew wasn't out there. So was it you or Catfish? Catfish was the other load. They unplug and they shove the cart off into the grass, and he goes rolling off and bouncing around. And then John goes, "Three's clear."
For those of you, that's not acceptable procedure. But we were my mission motto has been hack the mission, right? Get the mission done. Hack the mission.
Well, you almost hacked up that power
So,
but we hit the ground. The idea is to be on the ground in the shortest time, and we have to bet with the other crew. So we get up there, Brad and White and I, we hit the ground running. We run over to ops. We're filing. They're unloading. They're reloading. And the reason we're going into Yokota is they cut the runway in half. It was 4,000 feet long, so it was max Everett procedures in there the whole time. So we go in there, we land, and, you know, PACAF, you know, they want to have a good safety rating, so all their hercs were chained to the concrete. So bring in the guard. That's why we were flying up there. And so we were there for 2 weeks, and on this last rotation, we got in there, we were on the ground 45 minutes. That was our ground time to take stuff up there, unload it, put stuff up. We almost got messed up by the mail. Someone wasn't there to sign for the mail. But by the time we got back to the plane, they're like, "We don't have anybody to launch us." And so they shoved the cart off, and off we go. We are on the ground 45 minutes. They were on the ground for like an hour and a half, and I remember Margot was just pissed. We could have done it, but no one wanted to do anything. Because Margot was in on the other crew, and she wanted to win. But I mean, they had like an hour and a half ground time, so we blasted them out of the way. But on the way back, that's when. And Catfish started calling him Chez Weasel. And he cooked the mozzarella sticks, and the lasagna, and the garlic bread, and then for dessert we had apple strudel.
Apple strudel.
You went all Italian, then kind of went a little German. But it was good. So he had some skills. So, but I always did enjoy flying with you, and And I'm glad to see you. Hope we stay in contact for quite many long more years.
We shall. Thank you,
Congratulations.
sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce to you Senior Master Sergeant John M. Wesley, United States Air Force, retired. John, the floor is yours.
As I said earlier, I'm looking around at the numbers, their standing room. If you guys need to sit down, there's a few seats here. I won't be more than probably 2 hours. Since I am retired now, I'm going to take off this obscene stuff. Okay? Yeah, it's
Because it's hot or because the buttons are screaming?
mainly because I wish they'd issued me a chest.
Because the seams on my bag are screaming too.
Seriously, let's get a little bit of how many 2T2s do we have in here? Loud. Okay, and Darwin, Daryl, it's good to see you guys. And Stan, former commander, retired of the airport, chief. Yeah, it's just wow. Yeah, there's just a ton of guys that I haven't seen in a while, and those that I have seen within the last month. But yeah, I appreciate you showing up. From there, how many loadmasters? Okay.
What's it do you?
And now, besides loadmasters, what about the rest of the crew? How many air crew? Flight engineers, nav, okay. Kind of gives you an idea. And then the Towsy guys. Where's the Towsy? Yep. Now, you'll notice that there's a lot of folks that didn't raise their hand. So I'm not real sure what my influence was with you, but somewhere along the way, I cooked some food. Right? I know that through my career, many of you, I was a thorn in your side from time to time. And yeah, you were a thorn in my side. As part of our working relationship, trying to get things accomplished, a lot of hard driving attitudes, work ethics, all that good stuff. But for my blood family, I want to introduce you to the rest of my family. Because again, you notice that everybody traveled in, except of course my daughter Jessie and her fiance, but pretty much everybody else is out of town. And so been separated for most of the time. You know, a few visits here and there, people traveling. But 26 years of having the opportunity to hang out with a great family, Guard family. And it's been an honor. It really has. And I'm honored for those that came. Colonel, thank you. I appreciate you being here. And yeah, we've got a bunch of stories. We could go on forever, but I know the aeroporters are looking for some beer. Is the club open this afternoon? Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay, so yeah, you guys know where to head for the beer. There's also something else happening this afternoon. What's the scoop at 3:30? What's
Yeah, there's a homecoming event. I don't have a lot of details.
Okay, I know there's a function in the hangar to display the nose dock.
And then there's a retirement of the airport bell and the LDV award.
Okay, so
LRS.
the 2T2 605 Zero Porters at the old Dale Lee building, right, 1047.
Is that where it is?
Yes. Yeah. And then there's the other, so there's a lot of activities happening. Again, I am blessed that you guys took the effort to come and, yeah, it's amazing. So, and we missed Colonel Pettit. He's retired, standing in the back, red shirt. So, good to see you. Yeah. So, okay, I've got nothing else.
Thank you, Sergeant Wesley. Ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to stay.
No, we'll do that later. Okay, so see, did you hear what I did?
Yeah.
My mom wants to say something. Well, we're going to put it to a vote.
Now we know where you rank.
where did the name Weasel come from? You know how kids, you were all children, right? And you sometimes picked on someone's last name. You labeled them with something, right? And Wesley became Weasel. He even had a belt. He may even still have that belt that says Weasel on the back of it. Because he wore that with pride.
It was after Chick Magnet.
As I was listening to the cooking skills, I became a single parent when John was only 4 years old. And I was probably the one that may have taught him to be bossy, right? I did. We had a rule at the house that they had a chance to fix their own breakfast every morning. So I have 3 children. You had your chance this morning. The next one had their chance the next day. And the third one had his chance. He would start preparing his breakfast the night before. He would set everything out so that whatever he wanted to eat for breakfast the next morning, it was all ready to go. When he was only about 3 years old, you would tell him, pick up your room. He would go into his closet and he would start putting his shoes and all of his toys and everything in order. So that was a habit that he had developed from the time he was a wee little boy. Now, the next thing I wanted to share with you is he grew up with a mother that was bossy and 2 sisters. He was the only boy in the house. And there had to be a way that he survived. His grandmother called him the clown, and that was one way, you know, his humor. You've all been subjected to it. I've been subjected to it. But he was the clown. And one of his loves that predated the National Guard was Scouts. And John is an Eagle Scout.
What?
Yes, he is. And so when he moved to Oklahoma to come to school here, he said, how can anyone be in Scouts here? There aren't any mountains. Because he did his 100-milers in the Gila Wilderness. He loved Scouts. So those were his brothers, if you will, because he had to survive the 3 of us. And so you all have become his brothers. He has cherished you for years. He loves you and always has, because this has been something that has meant so much to him, and you have meant so much to him, because you truly have been the brothers that he did not have growing up. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mom.
I'm the little sister. Yep. So, John,
What is going on here?
growing up, growing up,
Time,
growing up, he had many, many roles. But most importantly, he was my hero. He protected me. I can remember a time when there were bullies. He took a huge beating for me, and also for Debbie. But also, there are other things growing up that he displayed when he was very young. He always had a mission. He always planned it. He always organized it. He always executed it. From very young, we would have these little... He had a binder. He had Actions, get our assignments. But also, when we lived out in the country, one day I discovered something. Out behind our garage, it was way out in the boondocks, and there was a hidden room. He had dug like a big square area into the dirt and put wood over it. And in this wood, it was like a little fort. And there's a little door with a hinge and everything, and he covered it so nobody would know it was there. Well, when you get in there, and you crawl down in there, I mean, he has like little cubby holes, and this is put here, another cubby over here, a book's there, and the lights are over here, and if I recall, it may have even had electric wires going in there. So, yeah. So, you know, it's, this is John. I think you guys have all seen John.
And I'm even sweating more now.
Yeah. I put together a book and a card. Just around, if you guys could sign the book,
We'll just set it up here and let them come up.
that'll be good. And take a look at some of the pictures. He even has a picture
It's embarrassing, I'm sure.
of Terry. He was a little kid.
I had a little more hair. There was a time before I got in the military, I had a full beard even. Yeah. Okay, it's stretching on.
That concludes today's ceremony.
Okay. Again, I appreciate each and every one of you coming. So.
I'd like to hear more from family.
You would.
Sounds like one's a weasel, always a weasel.
But yeah, it's interesting. It didn't take a little while until the word weasel came up, so that's cool. All right, that's all I've got. You guys dismissed, yeah?